This program is supported by
North Luzon Express Terminal, RJK Services Manpower Agency Corporation, Stark Molecular Laboratory.
You are watching a rescue operation of the Australian police following a landslide on a walking track in Sydney's Blue Mountains.
The incident took the lives of a British father and son, while the mother and another son are in critical condition and were rushed to the hospital. Details of the incident later in the news. Good evening, I am CJ Hirro.
And I am Nina Ricci, Alagao, Flores, and this is Mata ng Agila International. United Nations rights chief raises serious questions at images of dead civilians in Bucha, Ukraine. But Russia denies involvement in any killings. Australian landslide hits British family. Father and son killed and 2 others injured. At least 20 inmates killed in Ecuador after a riot broke out in prison. Players with disabilities score in video game combat sports. And Jared Leto's anti-hero film Morbius bites off $39 million in U.S. box office. Russia accused Ukraine of staging new civilian deaths in a number of locations in an effort to pin the blame on Moscow. The Russian Defense Ministry made the assertion after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky demanded tough new sanctions on Moscow after killings in the town of Bucha that have prompted international condemnation. The Russian Defense Ministry said that the Ukrainian military recorded a fake video that purported to show peaceful civilians allegedly killed by the Russian armed forces. Moscow said the video was made on Monday evening in the settlement of Moshchun, some 20 kilometers or 12 miles northwest of Kyiv, and was designed to be distributed through Western media. The ministry did not say how it obtained the information in its statement. At the weekend, dozens of bodies were discovered in Bucha near Kyiv after the withdrawal of Russian troops. Ukrainian officials said some had their hands bound behind them.
The human rights chief of the United Nations, or UN, voices concern after seeing images of dead bodies in the Ukrainian town of Bucha. Now, according to Liz Throssell, spokeswoman of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, the images of civilians lying dead on the streets and in improvised graves raise serious and disturbing questions. Throssell says evidence must be preserved and that the victims and families be granted justice.
It's vital that all efforts are made to ensure that there are independent and effective investigations into what happened in Bucha to ensure truth, justice and accountability, as well as reparations and remedy for victims and their families.
Vasily Nebenzia, Russia's ambassador to the United Nations, denies accusations of mass killings in the Ukrainian town of Bucha near Kyiv. Nebenzia says the images seen are staged, a mere provocation to discredit and dehumanize the Russian military, leveling political pressure on Russia.
Before the Russian troops left, before they left, and suddenly they appear on the streets, lying on the road, one by one, right and left. Some of them are moving. Some of them are signing, showing the signs of life. You cannot escape from an understanding that that is a stage. That is a stage. That is a fake. That this is a provocation. To this end.
The Russian ambassador to the UN has requested a Security Council meeting to discuss what he says is a heinous provocation by the Kyiv regime.
Russia called the mass expulsions of Russian diplomats by a number of European countries a short-sighted move that will only complicate communication. Earlier, Italy, Denmark, and Sweden joined EU allies in expelling Russian diplomats over the war in Ukraine, with more than 120 sent packing in the last 24 or 48 hours. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters that narrowing down opportunities for diplomatic communication in such an unprecedented difficult crisis environment would only further complicate communications, which is necessary to find solutions. The expulsions come amid international outrage over killings in the town of Bucha near Kyiv, where dozens of bodies were found over the weekend in mass graves or littering the streets. Italy's foreign ministry in Rome confirmed a report of expelling 30 Russian diplomats for national security reasons. Denmark earlier said it was expelling 15 Russian intelligence officers accused of spying on its territory. Shortly afterward, Sweden's foreign ministry announced it was expelling 3 Russian diplomats who conducted illegal operations there. But Russian authorities denied the charges of civilian killings in Bucha and other locations near the capital, with its defense ministry on Tuesday claiming they had been staged by Ukraine.
Thousands of military personnel were deployed in Shanghai to assist in the mandatory screening of its 25 million residents. China's financial hub was put under strict lockdown as people were tested for COVID-19 in their residential compounds. Shanghai on Monday recorded 9,000 new COVID cases and is considered the epicenter of China's outbreak. The government doubled its efforts to impose its own testing, mandatory lockdown, and isolation policies, which included the separation of COVID-positive babies and young children from their parents. The state media reported that 30,000 medics have been dispatched to Shanghai, and more than 2,000 other military medical personnel were deployed by the People's Liberation Army, or PLA.
Now, according to the Department of Medical Sciences, or DMSC, in Thailand, a parcel delivery man is suspected of being infected with a new COVID-19 variant not previously seen in the country. From Thailand, Esther Adanga reports.
Thailand's Medical Sciences Department reported the discovery of a suspected case of Omicron XJ variant, which is awaiting for confirmation through more analysis and additional information. Dr. Supakit Sirilak, the department chief, said that its genetic makeup is closer to that of XJ variant, which was detected in Finland. The infected is a 34-year-old parcel delivery man, which caused him to be in contact with many people, leading for different variants to mutate. Thailand has reported its first case of Omicron XE, a new hybrid of 2 previous versions of Omicron variant in which the World Health Organization has warned about. The WHO warned that Omicron XE could be the most transmissible strain, yet its severity is still being investigated. Reports from the UK Health Services Agency said the Omicron XE is 10% more transmissible than BA2 and 43% more transmissible than the original Omicron. The center also added that Omicron XE remains to be seen if it will become the dominant strain. 99.84% of all new COVID-19 cases in Thailand are of Omicron variant, and of these, 92.2% are of the BA2 sub-variant. Meanwhile, Thailand logged 21,088 new infections today and 91 fatalities. From Thailand, Esther Odanga for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
New analysis by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, shine additional light on the mental health of U.S. high school students during the COVID-19 pandemic. This includes a disproportionate level of threats that some students experienced. According to the new data, in 2021, more than a third of high school students have reported experiencing poor mental health during the COVID-19 pandemic. Over 40% have reported they persistently felt sad or hopeless in the past year. The new data also describes some of the severe challenges the youth has encountered during the pandemic, and these include emotional abuse by a parent or other adult in the home, including swearing at, insulting, or putting down the student. Physical abuse by a parent or other adult in the home, including hitting, beating, kicking, or physically hurting the student. And a parent or other adult in their home lost a job. According to prior CDC data, mental health was getting worse among high school students even before the pandemic. For one, racism, with the highest levels experienced among Asian students, has been linked to young people's poor mental health, academic performance, and lifelong health risk behaviors. The director of CDC's Division of Adolescent and School Health, Dr. Kathleen Ethier, thus reminds schools, families, and communities that their support protects adolescents from potentially devastating consequences.
At least 20 people died in a prison riot in southern Ecuador early Sunday. This is the latest outburst of deadly violence in the South American country's detention facilities. The president's office said 5 of the inmates were mutilated in the gang-related clash in the El Turi prison in Cuenca. Trouble broke out at 1:30 a.m. in the prison's maximum security section. 800 police officers and 200 members of the armed forces were then deployed to bring the riot under control. Ecuador has struggled in recent years to contain prison violence, usually gang-related, with 320 inmates killed in riots in 2021. This was attributed to an intensifying drug war, which has led to a surge in the number of gangs battling over the illegal but lucrative drug trade.
A landslide struck a British family on holiday in Sydney, killing the father and his 9-year-old son, while critically injuring the mother and another 14-year-old son. Australian police said the family of 5 was caught by the landslide on Monday as they hiked along a popular trail in the Blue Mountains of the west of Australia's largest city. Police said teams were still trying to recover the bodies and the father and son from the scene. Rescuers rushed the mother and her 14-year-old son to a hospital in Sydney. They both underwent surgery and were in critical condition. The couple's 15-year-old daughter was not injured and was walked out from the trail by emergency services. She is being assisted by the British Consulate and Welfare Services. Sydney has experienced heavy rains in recent weeks, with many suburbs in the city's west devastated by flash flooding and heavy storms. Local police in the Blue Mountains were investigating the landslide, and a report was to be prepared for the coroner on the 2 deaths. Coming up, former allies urge Sri Lankan president's resignation amid the island nation's crippling economic crisis. In Kenya, long queues were reported at filling stations amid fuel scarcity. More news from around the globe when Mata ng Agila International returns.
This portion is brought to you by
318 Automart,
Arlex Trading and Construction Supplies.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa new era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
In South Asia, Pakistan's Supreme Court adjourned today without ruling on the legality of political maneuvers that led Prime Minister Imran Khan to dissolve the National Assembly and call for fresh elections. The court will resolve on Wednesday if the Deputy Speaker of the Assembly violated the Constitution by refusing to allow a no-confidence vote against Khan. Had the vote taken place, Khan was certain to have been booted from office. Khan had claimed that the no-confidence vote was part of a U.S.-led conspiracy to remove him. The U.S., on the other hand, denied any kind of involvement.
When Turkey hosted talks between Russia and Ukraine last week, a familiar but unexpected face was seen among the officials and diplomats gathered in a wing from or of the former Imperial Dolmabahce Palace in Istanbul. It was Roman Abramovich, the billionaire Russian tycoon and owner of Chelsea Football Club, who has long sought to strike a balance between cordial ties with the Kremlin and a jet-setting lifestyle in the West. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said Abramovich participated in the negotiations as a member of the Russian delegation. He said Abramovich's presence indicated that the oligarch was trusted by Moscow. Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu said Abramovich had been making sincere efforts for peace since the first days of the war, adding that he had made a positive contribution to diplomatic efforts. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that while Abramovich was not an official member of the delegation, he was involved in ensuring certain contacts between the Russian and Ukrainian sides, for which he had approval from both parties. Adding to the intrigue, the Wall Street Journal last week reported that Abramovich had traveled to Kyiv earlier in March to meet President Volodymyr Zelensky. While there, he suffered a suspected poisoning attack that temporarily affected his eyesight.
According to a U.S. Defense Department official, Stinger and Javelin missiles, along with unmanned aerial systems and other defensive material, are being rushed into Ukraine. In an earlier release, the U.S. Department of Defense committed an additional $300 million security assistance to bolster Ukraine's capacity to defend itself as much and as fast as Americans can.
In keeping with that, today, the Secretary did speak with the Ukrainian Minister of Defense, Alexei Reznikov, to again reaffirm our support for Ukraine. He reiterated the U.S. commitment to the provision of additional defensive assistance to bolster their capacity. And he highlighted that $300 million Ukraine security assistance initiative package that I just talked about.
Capabilities in this package include night vision devices, thermal imagery systems and optics, tactical secure communication system, non-standard machine guns, commercial satellite imagery services, medical supplies, field equipment, and spare parts. To date, the U.S. has committed over $2.3 billion in security assistance to Ukraine, including more than $1.6 billion since the Russia-Ukraine conflict.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa lost his parliamentary majority as former allies urged his resignation. As days of street protests loomed over the island's nation's crippling economic crisis. The Sri Lankan president, once powerful ruling coalition, is in turmoil after a stirring of defections topped by Finance Minister Ali Sabri's resignation just one day after taking office. Sabri said that he regrets the inconvenience he caused but believes he always acted in the best interests of the country. Rajapaksa imposed a state of emergency last week in an effort to quell rising street protests. But the ordinance is set to expire next week unless ratified by Parliament. And inflation, a 13-hour blackout, severe shortages of food, fuel, and other essentials have inflicted widespread misery in the country's most painful downturn since independence from Britain in 1948.
A former Sudanese militia leader pleads not guilty to committing war crimes in Sudan's Darfur region.
ولا واحد من التهم يعني ما كله يعني مرفوضة عندي ولا متهم فيها أنا بريء منها جدا.
Abd al-Rahman, an ally of deposed Sudanese strongman Omar al-Bashir, faces 31 counts of war crimes and crimes against humanity for his role in the conflict almost 20 years ago. His trial is the first before the Hague-based ICC for crimes in Darfur, in which 300,000 people were killed and 2.5 million fled their homes, according to UN figures.
The United States and Iran blamed each other for a weeks-long impasse that has held up a return to the 2015 deal that sought to prevent Tehran from developing nuclear weapons. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Saeed Khatibzadeh said that the country's negotiations would not return to Vienna until Washington settles outstanding issues. Vienna is the site of the year-long talks to restore the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA. Khatibzadeh said they are awaiting definitive answer from Washington. But in Washington, Khatibzadeh's State Department counterpart Ned Prince pushed back, suggesting it was Tehran that was not giving way to make a deal possible. And Price warned the time was running out as Iran gets closer and closer to the nuclear breakout point when it has achieved the capacity to construct a nuclear weapon. The JCPOA gave Iran sanctions relief in exchange for curbs on its nuclear program to guarantee that Tehran could not develop or acquire an atomic bomb, something it has always denied wanting to do. But the United States unilaterally withdrew from the accord in 2018 under then-President Donald Trump, who reimposed biting economic sanctions that prompted Iran to begin rolling back its own commitments.
Amid long queues and strict rationing of gas stations, drivers in a city in western Kenya wait in frustration. Now, Kisumu is now suffering from a major fuel shortage as pumps across the country run dry. Drivers are complaining because they have been waiting for 3 days to get their turn to fill up their vehicles. Others even resorted to removing the fuel tank of their motorcycles and bringing it with them to the gas stations. Heavily affected by the shortage are the boda riders or motorcycle transporters or motorbike transporters and cab drivers. Now, the government blamed hoarding and panic buying for the snaking lines that worsened over the weekend, but oil dealers said they were owed outstanding subsidy payments from the state. Coming up, Peru's president imposes curfew in capital after violent protests over soaring inflation. Panama Canal Authority proposes a new toll structure for the interoceanic route. Billions worldwide still breathe unhealthy air, a new World Health Organization or WHO data says. All these and more when Mata ng Agila International returns.
This portion is brought to you by
Quezon City Motor Vehicle Inspection Center.
Robig Builders.
Tama na! Puro kay daldal! Sa dami ng problema ng mga syudad, panahon na para magbigay ng lunas!
Kailangan ng lunas sa problema ng no work, no pay. Lunas sa sweldo, sa kita, sa benepisyo. Kailangan nila ay party list sa Kongreso.
Ihanda mo ang pwersa ng Lunas Party List!
Lunas Party List, number 58 sa balota.
Mr. Bawal, ang galing mo namang sumayaw. Pwedeng pa-copy ng dance steps mo? Oo naman, Mr. Pwede. Mr. Bawal, ang ganda rin ng forma mo. Pwedeng pa-copy ng forma mo? Oo ba? Mr. Bawal, pakopya naman sagot mo. Yan ang hindi pwede. Ang pagsilip sa sagot ng iba, lalong-lalong na sabotuhan. Oy, bawal yan!
Ayon sa Omnibus Election Code, ang pagtatangkang silipin at alamin ang boto ng iba ay isang election offense.
Mr. Pwede? Please report to the principal's office.
Ako si Mr. Bawal, nagpapaalala sa inyo na ang pagsilip sa boto ng ibang botante. Oy, bawal yan!
A public service message of Net25 for Mata ng Halalan 2022. Matatag, matapang, matapat.
Umpisa ito ng second season.
Nagbabalik ang nag-iisang Diamond Star!
Maricel Soriano!
Diba? Que bongga-bongga!
Nanonood po ako ng TV.
Ay, ganun po ba? Eh, sino po ba idol mo siya po?
Si Miss Maricel Soriano.
Nakakaloka?
Dito lang sa...
Quezon City!
Abangan niyo po kami sa Ito ang Tahanan sa kanilang summer special episode, Tampok ang Jed's Island Resort sa Kalumpit, Bulacan. Tunghayan ang iba't ibang summer activities na pwedeng gawin kasamang inyong mga kaibigan at buong pamilya. 11 a.m. to 12 noon. Dito lamang po sa Net 25. Tara na!
Laughter is in the air dahil amoy na ang simoy ng katatawanan sa pagbabalik ng comedy prank show na talagang mapapawaw ang lahat sa ating ditong Laugh Trip Moments.
I'm starving! Yeah!
Are you crazy? Pagkulitan at tawanan kasama ang mga prangtito at prangtita na always ready sa mga hinanda naming pranks that will surely make you go crazy. Kasama pa rin ang mastermind ng mga nakakaaliw na practical jokes na si Joey De Leon. It's Bill! It's Bill! No! It's Oh no! It's Biro only! Malapit na sa Net 25.
Peruvian President Pedro Castillo declared a curfew in Lima and Callao after demonstrations across the country over soaring fuel prices caused roadblocks and violence. In an attempt to calm the protesters, Castillo removed the fuel tax, but citizens and transport workers seized the streets again. Some even set fire to tires and blocked the Pan-American highway. Schools had to be suspended. In a brief TV appearance, Castillo called out his people and said that social protest is a constitutional right, but it must be done within the law.
In Central America, the Panama Canal Authority proposes new toll modifications for the interoceanic route, which would be followed for the next 3 years. Once in effect, the new structure will reduce the number of fees from 430 tariffs to fewer than 60. This minimizes complexity and facilitates transactions by getting rid of toll bans. It also introduces fees based on locks used and vessel type and size. The toll system restructuring would increase rates charged on cargo such as petroleum products, vehicles, LNG goods, and grains that cross the waterway. Currently, 6% of all world trade passes through the Panama Canal. The United States is the canal's largest user. In fact, the Panama Canal has 46% of the total market share of containers moving from Northeast Asia to the east coast of the United States.
The powerful sister of leader Kim Jong-un said that North Korea will use its nuclear weapons to eliminate South Korea's army in the event they launch a preemptive strike. Kim Yo Jongs' angry warning carried in state media came after South Korea Defense Chief Seo Wook's comments that Seoul's military had missiles with the ability to accurately and quickly hit any target in North when there are clear signs of North's missile launch. Kim Yo Jong said it was a very big mistake, for Seo discussed a preemptive strike against a nuclear-powered country. She said the primary mission of the North was to act as a deterrent, but if an armed conflict were to break out, such nuclear weapon will be used at once.
The state of Florida joins 10 other U.S. states in requiring graduating high school students to take a personal finance education course. This is to equip young adults in handling their finances wisely. More on that story from Melissa Potes from Florida, USA.
According to Standard & Poor's Global Financial Literacy Survey, only 1/3 of adults worldwide understand basic financial topics, while 63% of millennials have increased anxiety when thinking about their financial situation. To decrease the gap and ensure financial success for Florida's youth, Governor Ron DeSantis signed Bill SB 1054 into law, making Florida the largest state to mandate personal finance education for high school graduation. In the press event, DeSantis stated that this financial literacy bill will provide an applicable foundation for students regardless of what path they take in the future. Students will learn the basics of money management, understanding debt, learning to balance a checkbook, and understanding the fundamentals of investing. Florida's Chief Financial Officer, Jimmy Patronis, also released a statement in which he noted that the lessons learned will be critical to training future generations to appreciate America's capitalist system and grow the nation's pool of entrepreneurs. Students entering high school in the 2023-24 school year and thereafter will be required to take a half-credit course in personal financial literacy and money management in order to graduate. Melissa Potas, Mata ng Agila International, Orlando, Florida. Trusted, connected, on point.
From a bike race to a 10K run and live cultural performances, Essex County residents in New Jersey are saying it's all worth the wait. Carlo Valdez tells us why this year's in-person cherry blossom celebrations are a must-see.
Welcome to the 46th annual Essex County Cherry Blossom Festival located here in Branchbrook Park in Newark and Belleville, New Jersey. The festival returns after a 2-year hiatus due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This is a fun-filled, family-friendly event, so be sure to bring your children and enjoy the park and the many activities throughout the week, such as the Cherry Blossom Challenge annual bike race, Cherry Blossom 10K run, and Bloom Fest. There will also be live Japanese cultural performances and art painting. And most importantly, food. So if you're in New Jersey and the surrounding metropolitan areas, be sure to stop by and enjoy the pinkiest trees in New Jersey. Signing off from Newark, New Jersey, Carlo Valdez, Mata ng Agila International.
The population of gray whales from the cold seas of Alaska to the warm waters of Mexico is alarmingly decreasing. The reason? Food shortages caused by rising temperatures, mortality, and a decrease in births. Data from the National Office of Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOOA, indicate that the estimated abundance of the whale population has declined from over 26,000 individuals in 2016 to less than 21,000 in 2021. The gray whale protected areas of northwestern Mexico also documented a decrease in the number of calf births in addition to mortality. Providers of gray whale watching tourism services are concerned about this phenomenon because aside from providing an economic income for their families, they also maintain a close relationship with the animals for most of their lives. Feeding mainly on small crustaceans, the gray whale practices the friendly whale syndrome, which involves approaching boats in a friendly manner with their pups.
99%, almost the entire global population, breathes air that exceeds the air quality limits of the World Health Organization, or WHO, and this threatens their health. A record number of over 6,000 cities in 117 countries are now monitoring air quality. Despite this, the people living in them are still breathing unhealthy levels of fine particulate matter and nitrogen dioxide. People in low and middle income countries suffer the highest levels of exposure. The findings have prompted WHO to highlight the importance of curbing fossil fuel use and taking other tangible steps to reduce air pollution levels. In an effort to help countries better evaluate the healthiness of their own air, WHO last year revised its air quality guidelines, making them more stringent. As the World Health Day on April 7 approaches, global attention is sought on urgent actions needed to keep humans and the planet healthy and foster a movement to create societies focused on well-being. WHO estimates that more than 13 million deaths around the world each year are due to avoidable environmental causes. Coming up, Samsung will let users fix their own Galaxies. Blue Origin completes fourth space tourism mission. EasyJet cancels flights as COVID hits staff in Europe. Stay tuned because sports and entertainment news are also next when we return.
This portion is brought to you by SCCI Management and Insurance Agency Corporation and
Source Alliance.
Naku, Teng. Sigurado ako, maraming tao sa araw ng botohan.
Naku, sinabi mo pa, pila dito, pila doon. Napakaraming tao.
Alam nyo ba? Sa araw ng botohan, bukas na ang presinto ng alas 6 ng umaga.
Bukas na ang presinto ng alas 6 ng umaga?
Wow! Parang choir! Mula alas 6 ng umaga hanggang alas 5 ng hapon.
Eto nga, ang hirap pa niyan, yung hanapan ng presinto.
Kaya nga sa araw ng botohan, mas makabubuting dumating ng maaga sa presinto para iwas sa siksikan at sa dami ng tao. Naku! Iwas din sa init.
Tama! Agahan natin ang pagboto.
Korek ka dyan, Mare. Teka lang, nagtitinda ka ng balot? Ay, ang aga pa.
Dahil the early bird catches... Wala palang bird. Balot! Balot! The early balot catches... Hindi naman kayo worm. Bili na lang po kayo. Para sa karagdagang kaalaman, makipag-ugnayan lang sa pinakamalapit na barangay o bisitahin ang COMELEC website.
A public service message of Net25 for Mata ng Halalan 2022. Matatag, matapang, matapat.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
This portion is brought to you by
Canrev Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. Services offered: supply and installation of elevators, escalators, air conditioners, ventilators, jet towel hand dryers, generators, access control system, factory automation and modernization. For more information, please contact Ami Kanke.
Samsung is the latest mobile tech company giving its customers the right to repair their own smartphone. The company is launching a unique self-repair program in which the consumers will be provided with the needed spare parts and guide to fix their Galaxy units. In return, Samsung will take the damaged parts for recycling purposes. The new program, in collaboration with iFixit, will be available this summer to select Galaxy and Galaxy Tab users.
Congratulations to all 6 crew. They crossed that Kármán line. They just officially became astronauts. Absolutely outstanding.
Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin successfully launched its 4th crewed space tourism flight aboard the New Shepard rocket. Literally out of this world, the 10-minute joyride carried the first married couple to fly in space, Sharon and Mark Hagel. Also on board were 3 other paying customers, as well as Chief Architect Gary Lai. The passengers looked at Earth from space and enjoyed a few minutes of weightlessness before the capsule re-entered the atmosphere.
Surging COVID cases have forced EasyJet Airlines to cancel UK flights over staff shortages. Ariane Celestino has the story from London.
Hi, and yes, EasyJet on Monday said it was cancelling flights to and from UK after high COVID rates in Europe left the British airline with a lack of staff. As a result of the current high rates of COVID infections across Europe, like all businesses, EasyJet is experiencing higher than usual levels of employee sickness, the carrier said. After canceling more than 200 flights over the weekend, EasyJet said it had preemptively canceled 60 for Monday. The airline noted that it was a small proportion of the more than 1,645 flights planned for the day. We have taken action to mitigate this through the roasting of additional standby crew. However, with the current levels of sickness, we have also decided to make some cancellations in advance, EasyJet said in a statement. In the UK, rates of COVID infection have hit a record high according to official data Friday. Some 4.9 million people in the UK are estimated to have had COVID-19 in the week ending March 26, or 600,000 more than the previous week, the Office for National Statistics said. The World Health Organization has said that several European countries, including Britain, France, Germany and Italy, lifted their COVID curves too brutally and are seeing a rise in cases, likely owing to the more transmissible BA2 variant. That's all from me. Back to you in the studio. From London, United Kingdom.
South Korea's consumer prices in March grew at the fastest pace for more than a decade. The consumer price index jumped 4.1% on year, the fastest pace since December 2011. It also marked the 12th consecutive rise caused by a spike in the cost of goods and services, as well as surging fuel and raw material prices brought about by the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The reading ramped up expectations that the Bank of Korea will lift interest rates at its next meeting to bring the price rises under control.
Tesla CEO Elon Musk shakes the social media world by buying 73.4 million shares of Twitter. This is worth about $2.9 billion based on Friday's share price. Musk thus became the largest shareholder of the social media mammoth with 9.2% shares in the company. News of the purchase sent Twitter stocks soaring 27.1% to $49.97. Musk himself has more than 80 million followers on the microblogging platform and is a frequent user. He has criticized Twitter in the past for its approach to speech rights. Now, with a net worth of $287.6 billion, Musk is currently the world's richest man, according to Forbes. On the other hand, European stock markets closed with modest gains, while tech companies led Wall Street as stocks pressed higher. Now, Amazon, Apple, and Google parent Alphabet all advanced by more than 2%, and Musk's electric car company Tesla jumped 5.6%. In NBA news, Lowry returns to Toronto to face his former Raptor teammates. Although he might be wearing a Miami Heat jersey now, Zarita Saisi of our Toronto bureau was there to witness the reunion and tells us the love between the player and the city has not at all faded.
Emotions were high in Scotiabank Arena as Toronto Raptor fans welcomed beloved former Raptor Kyle Lowry as he returned to Toronto for the first time since signing with the Miami Heat this past offseason. With the arena littered in number 7 jerseys donning Lowry, the 6-time All-Star was presented with a tribute video in which the organization recapped his career as a Raptor. It was in that moment that fans were able to show their appreciation towards the point guard that they called captain for 9 years. When asked how special this particular game and moment was, Kyle Lowry knew the feeling was mutual.
It meant the world to me, for the fans to show their appreciation, give me an ovation like that. One of those days where the first time is always special, and you don't forget that. They showed me, that everything I did here meant the world to them, just like, vice versa.
Lowry was with the Raptors organization for the past 9 seasons. During his tenure with Toronto, Kyle Lowry was also able to represent Toronto in 6 All-Star games and was named All-NBA team for the 2015-2016 season. Most importantly, Lowry was able to bring home a championship during the 2018-2019 season. With the inevitable departure of Kyle Lowry, many see it as the end of an era. But with how Toronto's front office has constructed this team, many also believe that the future of this franchise is in good hands. Zarita Sese, Matana Agila International, Toronto, Ontario. Trusted, connected, on point.
Despite being blind, Carlos Vasquez is a master of video fighting game Mortal Kombat. The Texas resident gamer, who relies only on sound to time punches, dodges, and kicks, caught the attention of Mortal Kombat maker NetherRealm Studios, owned by Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment. At Vasquez's suggestion, the studio added audio cues to help blind gamers to interact more with the game. Vasquez is among those who are calling for better access to gaming for people with disabilities. Long neglected by the industry, the issue of accessibility is thus increasingly front of mind for game makers. Morbius, the latest comic book superhero film, opened at $39.1 million at the U.S. box office. Starring Jared Leto and distributed by Sony, the latest Marvel flick from Columbia Pictures also took in $44.9 million at the international box office. This boosted its global total to $84 million. Sony concludes that Morbius's box office performance just proves that audiences truly love comic book movies. Britney Spears shared the news on Instagram that she is in the process of writing a new tell-all memoir. The pop star singer said that the book will discuss painful moments in her life that she has never been able to express openly to the public. Spears wrote that the writing process has been healing and therapeutic for her, though she added that it was difficult for her to bring up past life events. On April 5, 1792, U.S. President George Washington exercised presidential veto for the first time. The proposal was to divide seats in the House of Representatives, which then he deemed unconstitutional. On the same date in 1951, Ethel and Julius Rosenberg were sentenced to death. Having leaked atomic bomb intelligence to the Soviets, they were the first American civilians to be executed for conspiracy to commit espionage. They were also the first to suffer that penalty during peacetime. And in 1956, Fidel Castro declared war against President Fulgencio Batista, who overthrew the authoritarian regime of Gerardo Machado. Castro's declaration of war laid the founding stone for Cuban Revolution. Now, before we end tonight's broadcast, let us ponder on a quote from Voltaire. As long as people believe in absurdities, they will continue to commit atrocities. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. Once again, I am CJ Hirro. And I am Nina Ricci, Alagao, Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
is in the air dahil amoy na ang